Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Is powered by OGC Solutions. And I'm here with a new friend, Jonathan Hawkins. You are the first lawyer other than anybody from OGC Solutions to be interviewed on this podcast. So Jonathan, we broke some new ground today. Jonathan is the owner of Law Firm GC. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
You know, we don't just bring on other lawyers for fun. I thought your practice is a really interesting one. Not only does it synergize with what we do, but you're really focused on the law firm market and being the general counsel for law firms. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the firm, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So our firm, the way I sort of describe it is we represent lawyers and law firms from inception to death, basically dissolution from start to finish. So we can help firms get off the ground, help partnerships come together. Also when they're breaking apart or if the law firm's closing, if they're selling, if they're buying, if they're merging, all the things that sort of happen in a law practice. And then on top of that, we do serve in an advisory role, sort of outside general counsel. So ethics advice, just business advice, advisory, conflicts, all those sorts of things. And then the last piece, which I had never done, and personally, so I brought in some folks that did it, would be sort of the legal malpractice defense and bar grievance defense. We added that last year or maybe 18 months ago. So now it's soup to nuts. Any issue that really could come up and run in a firm, we do it. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. If you're going to close a big real estate deal on a building, we're not your folks. Go get a real estate attorney. But for the most part, the things that operate in a firm, similar to what you guys provide to your clients.
Yeah, law firms at their heart are really just professional services businesses. Although a lot of lawyers, maybe I'm guilty of this sometimes too, but think that it's different and complex, and not that somebody from the outside is really not something that they need. But at the end of the day, it's just another business where people need to solve problems.
Yeah, and I talk to non-lawyers about this sometimes. I'm like, well, you represent lawyers. Can't they just represent themselves? Like they can just do it all themselves, right? Well, not really. I would not represent myself in a family law matter. I don't know anything about it, really. I would not draft my own trusts. There's lots of things I don't know in the law. And so when I tell lawyers what we do, they're usually intrigued. They're like, I've never heard of that. I'm like, I might need to talk to you. So it's fun. And, I tell people also, I am my client and they are me. So I really understand what they're going through because I'm going through it myself.
Well, there's that old adage about a lawyer who represents himself as a fool for a client.
Yeah.
That often happens, right? To your point about, if you're a specialist in a certain area, you just may not be well suited to run your own business, at least on all the issues, right? Tell me some of the things that you typically encounter when you're dealing with lawyers and solving problems in their day-to-day business.
So here's a big one, and this surprises a lot of people too, is there are many law firm partnerships out there that don't have anything in writing on their deal.
It's so surprising to me.
It's crazy. And it can work. It can work, and then until it doesn't, and then when it doesn't, it's really bad. But even the ones that do, and I've been doing this for probably about 15 years, this practice area, and I've probably read, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of partnership agreements at this point, and a lot of lawyers will just go online, download a form, change the names, and sign it, and they're like, that's good enough. And then I get in there and say, oh man, you need something more than this. And then others, it's just, it's the whole cobbler's kids have no shoes effect maybe. But others I have drafted, we spend all this time, they pay me money, we draft these agreements, and then we talk 3 years later. I'm like, yeah, did you sign the thing? Yeah, we never signed it. So it's just, it is kind of crazy, but I see that all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, that we as lawyers are here to manage risk, but sometimes you don't bring it home and do it in your own home and make sure that you're set up for success in the future, or at least prepared for those bad times, because that's when those agreements really come in handy.
And the analog I have, my personal analog, it took me, I tell this story a lot, but it took me 10 years and 3 different lawyers before I actually had my estate planning documents signed and ready. And the
Mm.
only reason we did it was because we were headed out of the country and we signed it the day before. And part of it for me, part of it was we couldn't figure out who we were going to name to take after, to look after our kids if something happened to us. And people just said, just pick somebody, just pick somebody. And finally, we just picked somebody and got it done. But I think there's certain roadblocks, mental roadblocks in a lot of lawyers' heads, just like it was in my head, and you just don't get it done for whatever reason. And we're busy, we're doing stuff. I get that too.
Yeah, it's one of those to-do list items that always gets put on the back burner because you think that, the clients that you're working for have to take priority, and maybe that's true. But doing your own homework is really where people fall short, I think. For sure. And I'm guilty of it as well. I got my estate plan that just got written and it's sitting in a to-do that I've been putting off for 2 weeks. So I totally understand it. Where do you see the roadblocks among partners in terms of, not only putting the infrastructure in place, but also understanding that they've got to get some outside help to run the business really well?
It's a great question. It runs the gamut. Another thing that I see with lawyers, and I've seen it over and over with people I've personally worked with, and maybe myself too. It's, I've seen bulldog litigators that can just be aggressive with everybody in the world, but when they look internally at their own firm, with their own staff, with their own partners, they're scaredy cats, and they don't want to address anything. They just want to put their head in the sand and just hope things get taken care of. Because sometimes these things, you got to have hard conversations to work through some of these things, and nobody wants to have them. And that is one of the first things I think for any successful business partnership, law or non-law. You got to have conversations with your partners on vision. How do we want this place to look? Where do we want to grow it to or not? What role are you going to have? What role am I going to have? How hard are you going to work? How hard do we want to work? What do we expect from each other? All those sorts of discussions that just run in a business. I think if you have partners, you got to have those discussions, hopefully on the front end, not midway through or towards the end.
Hmm. No, absolutely. It's that's probably the more appropriate time too, when uh, everybody's happy, everybody's getting along, and it's a lot easier, I think, to get those things done when everybody's friends. It's really difficult after maybe you're not friends or you're not as close as you were when you started. In terms of the legal services market, you're in touch with lots of lawyers doing a variety of things. What are you seeing in terms of how they're growing their businesses, how they're doing succession plans? Obviously, in the background is the new ABS model, alternative business structure model, in a couple of states. Give me a sense for what lawyers are thinking about these days.
Well, this is one of the fun things about my job is that they are all over the place. There are, every kind of business model you can think of, some that are, almost pure solos to gigantic firms, from high volume to low volume to flat fee to subscription to everything under the sun. And then you turn to sort of how they get their clients and how they build their business. And, really a lot of it depends on the practice area. But even within practice areas, there's so many different ways people are doing things. And that's one of the parts that I really love. So I get to talk to these folks that are doing all these different things and learn from all of them and pick the good stuff, and then for myself. But also it gives me perspective when others call and they say, well, what's everybody doing? And I was like, well, they're doing a lot of different things. People like you are sort of doing this. And maybe to give some specifics. So for example, there are certain consumer facing type practices that go heavy on SEO, digital ads, some commercials, radio, TV, billboard, those sorts of things. But people like you and me, that wouldn't work. We'd just be burning money. I'm not going to take that approach. I'm not putting billboards up. We need to go a different way. And so, they're trying, I say a foundational thing for all. I don't care what practice area, but foundational, it's all about relationships first. So build out your referral relationships first always and build from there, no matter the practice area. I know I rambled on there. I don't know if I answered your question
No,
or not.
no, it's interesting because it's really the practice area I think that drives what the growth pattern is, what the go-to-market strategy is, and then ultimately what the succession plan would be. Um, the personal injury firms like you were referring to, way different in terms of all of those things from what a corporate firm like yours and mine do. Um, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities in the marketplace too for folks like that in terms of selling their businesses, more creative succession plans, just because of the volume and ultimately the profit margins that you see in those businesses.
Yeah, we're seeing, you just mentioned selling. That so let me back up. So my career. So early on, really lawyers came to me for two things. And it was, we're coming together to form a partnership or we're breaking apart. Those were sort of the two main reasons people came into my orbit, and then they'd stick around afterwards. And then maybe about 3 years ago, a third area really started emerging, and that's, I call it succession planning. And that can mean internal transition, external sale, all the above. And then we can get into this now or later, but more and more in the news in the legal industry, there's talk about the ABS, alternative business structuring out in Arizona, which allows non-lawyer ownership, and then MSO type structures that have sort of permeated some of the other professions like medical and accounting and all these others. It's, for whatever reason, it's really never really come to law until very, very recently, and it's all the rage. Everybody's talking about it. We'll sort of see where it goes, but that's sort of a new potential exit transition strategy for some, not all, but some law firms.
Yeah, when we talk about MSO, that's managed service organization, right? It's to me, it means really centralizing back office and technology for firms. I'm really curious about that too. I can see where a large firm with 1,000 lawyers and 500 staff, where they've got a pretty big nut every year paying for technology and back office systems and all of that and billing and collections. That kind of makes a little bit of sense to me. I just wonder if it's going to permeate down to the mid-market firms like ours.
Great question. We will see. I think in the smaller markets, the PI for sure, it's already here, a personal injury. For traditional firms, I don't know. There are some constraints, I think, conflicts and others. But there are a couple of strategic reasons why firms may want it, other than actually optimizing their systems and all that. But one is forever, non-lawyers cannot own law firms, except
Right.
in Arizona and maybe DC, and there's some small exceptions. Others are thinking about that. So it has really, law firms have not been able to raise money to invest in technology and systems and platforms except through debt. And lawyers are risk averse and do not want to do it. So an MSO structure, at least in theory, you could then carve out the non-legal functions and it would allow you to raise some outside investment so that you could build out some of those platforms and technologies that you otherwise wouldn't really be able to do. So that's one strategic reason why firms may want to explore that.
Yeah, it takes some of the burden, the financial burden off the firm in terms of getting to that next level, or maybe in some cases a couple of levels up from where they are currently, and provide them a suite of services that they otherwise wouldn't be able to buy themselves, for sure. Yeah, I find it interesting because I think it's a huge change in the market, as you're indicating, and it's really an interesting evolution. But I think it's a little bit rocky because the whole ABS structure is a little bit new. At least relatively new to this market. It's only been around about 4 years or so, at least here in the U.S. So for law firm GC, your firm, what's your ideal client look like? And tell me, how do you engage with them and how do you get started helping them?
Sure. So, our sweet spot, I would say probably 2 to 30 lawyers. We have some solos that we represent, and then we have some that have, 100 plus lawyers. Once they get really, really big, they have huge internal teams. They don't really need us. And frankly, we're probably too small. But we'd have to grow a lot to be able to help them. So really, I'd say 2 to 30 lawyers. And again, there's really 3 main reasons that people sort of come into our orbit, and that's coming together, breaking apart, or some sort of transition, succession planning issue. And after that, once they sort of get to know us and what we do, we start getting the calls regularly. Hey, I got this employment issue, or hey, this potential conflict issue, or hey, whatever. And so, really we focus on, in terms of getting people in our orbit, again, those 3 big areas.
Yeah, and then it really starts from there. You're able to sort of flex a little bit to be able to provide them the services that they need, not only on a volume basis, but also in the subject matter area too.
Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, we are my firm, and we are evolving as well, and we're going to sort of go where the market takes us. And I've experimented with some things. I had this great idea, and I spent all this time, and then I pushed it out there, and nobody wanted it. I was like, man, that was a waste. So now I try not to do that. I try to listen to the market, and when they start speaking to me, especially if I hear it more than once, I'm like, okay, there might be something here.
Right.
So then we start to explore those sorts of things. Because again, I think people need us, just probably like your clients need you. Part of it is you got to educate them on how you can help and why they need you, and how it's valuable versus a cost. And so part of that is education, and sometimes they have to go through it before they realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you think of it like an insurance policy, where it's something that you're used to and you pay for, and you'd be crazy if you didn't have it. Same thing with access to legal counsel. On whatever basis you're going to buy it, you need it. Yeah, you ought to hopefully get it on a cost-effective basis, but you need it because you can't answer all the questions yourself.
Absolutely. And people, I'm sure you see this too. AI, ChatGPT, you ask it a question and it gives you an answer, and it looks good. It looks really good, and it sounds right, but it's not usually right. And I've done it, I test it, and it pumps something out, and it sounds so sure this is the answer. And they're like, yeah, I know that's not the answer. And so you probably see this too. I get clients that they come to me with, hey, here's what ChatGPT told me.
I see it more and more,
ready.
actually. Yeah, I see it more and more. And people are proud of it. Hey, we start with ChatGPT, and we're going to dump all our problems in there and see what we get. And thankfully, they come to me, and I tell them why ChatGPT is wrong, like you said, or it made something up. But the confidence, the way that it's presented, I think is the most dangerous piece of it.
Truly, it's truly amazing. Now, if you're a litigator, it might be one of the best things to happen to your practice, because it's going to create some fights in it, somewhere down the road.
All that, and if you're looking to defend lawyers on malpractice claims, it's a great place you should find out all the people that are using it without checking it, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. We read all the papers about guys getting sanctioned for stuff like that. It's a problem. It's a real problem.
It's amazing that it's still happening at this point. I mean, it's amazing that we're still reading about these things.
Yeah, and the fines and the penalties keep going up and up and up, and it's like you got to wear the scarlet letter after you get caught doing that. It's people don't want to hear it. So for sure. Well, this has been great. Getting to know you a little bit and talking about your client base. It sounds like you're really set up for success and going in the right direction with the law firm GC firm.
We're trying. It's fun. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's the way it goes. But it's fun trying to figure it all out.
Let folks know your firm's website and where they can reach you.
Sure. It's www.lawfirmgc.com. That's a good place to find me. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. Come find me there. Follow me if you like what I'm putting out there.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again. This has been Jonathan Hawkins joining us from Law Firm GC and joining the Think Factory podcast today. And we'll see you next time.